Today we're going to be starting our journey in looking how to use Google Apps for education effectively in the classroom, and specifically today we're going to be looking at Google Forms. I like to start with Google Forms because they're a very easy way to get started for both teachers and students. They're very effective in the way that we are able to collect information from the students and then be able to analyze and do a fair bit with it. So here I am, I'm in my Google Drive account, drive.google.com. I've logged in already as me, but obviously if you're not logged in, Google will ask you to log in. When I click on this and the new form, we'll notice that immediately it doesn't actually show Google Forms anymore in the first main three. Not sure why that is. It's quite a, well, not that annoying, but at least it could be a lot more efficient if we were to go from there. So we'll just zoom that out just a little bit so we can see the screen better. Let's just talk through this. There's a number of things here that it's good just to go over. Firstly, there's a name for the forms. It's always good to name the form straight away. So I'm going to go training with forms, and by using the word training it means it's pretty clear to me that later on if I want to get rid of it I can. If I go training with forms, it sets up there, but it also names it here automatically. There's a number of settings here which can be a bit confusing. So the first one is requires an Inner School login. Now that's the school that I work at, obviously, and Inner School's login would mean that for anyone to be able to add something or contribute something to the data from this form, they would need to actually log in and leave their username. Now quite often that's a really handy thing, but sometimes it also gets in the way because it slows students being able to get there. So let's assume today that students don't have accounts, and we're just going to deselect that. I'm going to make sure that that's a good idea. Now that I've done that, I can't automatically collect the school username. If I click that, it will tick back to that one straight away. So that one's impossible. There's a progress bar if you have multiple pages where students are entering information in. You can set it up so that there is a progress bar at the bottom. And once again, if you get them to log in, you can stop them from having multiple goes. There is a shovel question option here as well. So let's scroll down and have a look. Training with forms, this is the developer's side. This is the part where you're actually creating it. It's not that complex, but it's just if you follow it through, there is some tricks that will make things just a little bit quicker and more efficient for you. Firstly, training with forms. This is a sample form that Dave has created for training purposes. But if you were asking students to pick the people they'd like to be in rooms with at a camp, you'd explain that here. So now automatically Google has created one question for us. The first question, untitled question, it's a multiple choice and we have some options there. So let's just go with that for now. What is the weather at your house like today? Question mark. And in this design mode, I now have a number of choices. So it's a multiple choice question. We'll leave it like that for now. There is some help text, so you could say, if you're not sure what the weather is, go outside and have a look. Let's see, sunny. And I'm just pressing the tab key on the keyboard to move to the next one. Notice as soon as I go into the new one, it creates another option for me. Rainy, cloudy, and cyclone. Okay, so there are the options. Here's a couple of things here. We'll get to what it means to go to a page based on an answer later on, but later on it is possible to set it up so that if they select raining, they go to a particular page. We won't play with that just yet. There is an option here to say the question is required. In other words, if the student is going to enter the data into this form, then they must answer this question. Okay, so I'm going to press done on that. And you'll see that it now shows it to me as a sample of what the question actually looks like. So that's there. Let's look at some different types. Since I chose not to collect the students' usernames by getting to log in, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go text, and I'm going to go name. I'm going to give it the question name, and then I'm going to click here, done. So now I have two questions. I have name and done, and when I hover over it, you'll notice that I have an option to edit, an option to duplicate, and an option to delete. So the question I don't want there anymore, I can get rid of it. But also notice as I hover over the top of them when they're selected, I can drag and change the order of our questions, which can be a really handy thing. So Working down the page, that's 2 types of questions, and a little bit later on we'll have a look at some of the other ones that are available. Most of them make reasonable common sense, but there's a couple that are worth noting. One of the things that Google has added in recent years is the capacity for page breaks, to put pictures and to put videos into your actual forms, which can be a really handy way, especially if you're doing some type of formative assessment. Watch this video, answer these questions, it can all be integrated into the same spot. Paragraph text is probably one that's worth mentioning. Paragraph text has more space, so several lines to answer. Long response versus short response, or one word versus a couple of sentences. More often than if it's more than a couple of words, you go to paragraph text. And probably the other one that's important is multiple choice is when the students can only make one selection, which is obviously a very common thing for teachers to know. But checkboxes allow students to make more than one selection. So they could say it is both sunny and rainy at our house today, which obviously doesn't fully make sense. Choose from a list is very similar to multiple choice, but instead of filling the page up with all the options, it's a drop down list, very much like this, which I click here, that's a list. Alright, so far, what have we done? We've created a simple form, training with forms. We've gone here, we deselected that you need an Innaburra School logon, but you certainly could leave it there if you want to definitely keep the students' names, or you don't trust your class, they might put some silly names in here. That's an option. So what have we done? We've created a page on the internet where somebody could go and type in these boxes, and then that when they're finished with it, they would actually then be able to have that data stored for the teacher. So let's just move along here. Initially, let's start with a change theme. So there are a lot of different ways that you can make your forms look. When I go to this, it's sort of giving me a view of what it will look like on the web. But I can come over here and go, oh yes, I would like the cars and trucks look for my one. And it's coming with different colors and different options there for me. And I can come here and go fireworks and homework. I think we'll go back to fireworks. Okay, so training with forms. It's made it look a bit prettier. It's a pre-designed one. If you want to get into this later on, you have the capacity now to actually go and customize any of these particular ones. So when I click on the form here, the theme, if you press customize, you can then change a whole lot of these options, including the images and a whole lot of different things from there. And once you've created one good theme, it is possible to grab a theme from a form that you've previously created. So for me, I work at Innaburra, and I can go and grab forms which I have used in the past, and in that form that I've set up, it already has the school logo and it has the school look. But I mean, that gets a little bit boring after a while, so I think I much prefer my fireworks form, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we've created the questions, we've changed the theme. We have 2 other things that come up here. One is view the responses. So when somebody's actually used my form, that's where the responses will be. We're not going to jump to that yet because we actually need to see the live form. So if I click here, this shows me what the form would look like. Now because I'm logged in as the teacher, well, using my account, and it knows that I own this form, it does give me the option to edit the form here, which is handy. But this is what it would look like for students. So I'm going to go Dave, and currently outside, what is the weather at your house like today? It's cloudy, and I'm going to press submit. Now notice how it's popped up here and it says submit another response. That was one of our options right down the bottom, and we can choose to actually stop that if we don't want them to. And I'm going to come in here, go Fred, and it's going to be sunny today. And then I'm going to submit another response, which will be Tom, and it's going to be a cyclone where he is. All right. So actually, just for one more thing, let's come back here and submit another response, and we'll put it in Julie, and we will once again tick sunny. Alright, so every time they've done that, if I come back here to my original form, you'll see now it says up here I have 4 responses. So if I press this button that says view responses, I'll get a new tab up here, which gives me a spreadsheet. It looks like a spreadsheet, it truly is a spreadsheet where it has the details that are set up here. Notice how the name column is in the second one, even though on the spreadsheet it appears first. Each of the columns get created in the order that you actually put them onto the form in the first place. That's alright, we can move it if we need to. Generally you don't need to. So here's the data. We could then, as a teacher, I could simply have put 3 questions up on the board at the start of the lesson. Question 1, question 2, question 3, please answer these in the boxes. Then now, as a teacher, I have very quick access to look at what people wrote. A very strong formative assessment tool. If it is multiple choice, if it is very much short responses or where things that we can be easily analysed, there is also an option up here to go to the form menu and go to an option that says show summary of responses. Now this is a very simple one, but note that it's given me a pie chart straight away. So the analysis of the data doesn't require anything from you than simply getting the students to enter the information back here and then being able to then select from the form menu the show summary of responses option, which I think is a fantastic way of getting it from there. In regards to forms, there are a number of other tricky things that we can do, but generally that should be enough to get people started with it. You should be able to then still come back here and edit your questions. You have the options to change some of these things down here. So your confirmation page, we could remove the link so that students only do it once, in theory, and go from there. Probably the last thing that you need to realize is that we need to be able to share this form with the class. Now, there are a lot of different ways of doing it. So if I am actually viewing the live form, which I think I already had open up here anyway, there is a really long address here up the top. Now, if you have access to Moodle or any other learning management system where you can share a link, you can simply come here and go copy, and then go into the page on Moodle and put it there. There are a number of other options that are built in. There is an option here called send the form. Send the form gives us this really long address here, but you can tick a button which shortens it. And you can then also copy that so that you can take it. There are some other options for sharing, most of which we probably wouldn't use in our course anyway, but that address could be just written up on a board and theoretically the students could get there. Alright, so if you're a newbie to this stuff and that's enough for you for now, you might want to stop, pause, go and practice this. For those of you a little bit more experienced, I have a really good extension here called the goo.gl URL shortener. Now, to get access to that, what I actually will do is I'm just going to open up another tab again. I'm going to click on my apps options and I'm going to go through to the web store. Now in the web store section I can add a whole lot of functionalities to Chrome itself. So I'm just going to type in URL short and it comes up with these options. So you can see I have already here installed this particular one. And if you wanted to do it, you would actually just press the Add to Chrome button, but I've already done it for me already. So when I come up here and click on this, I'll go to the viewing the form. So this is the form. If I want a short address using this, I can click this here and it gives me an address which I can copy. But I could also just show that on the board and the students could go to it. So I don't even need to prepare anything from there. And the nice thing with this one is if you had students actually responding with mobile phones and they had QR readers, they could then just scan that and be able to work from that. Alright, well I think that will get us started with forms. They're a very powerful, quick, formative assessment tool which I think you'll be able to use a fair bit in your classrooms.